Okay, what's going on, guys? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live. Sorry, having weird issues with the mics being muted and whatnot. Like when we start streams, it's kind of weird. Sometimes they're not muted when we're on the logo screen. Sometimes, tonight it was muted. Been a while since I've talked muted, so there you guys go. A little bit of nostalgia for you. We're going to have a pretty chill stream tonight. Not a whole lot planned. We'll talk about Anfernee Simons and his potential to be in the rotation. We'll talk about CJ McCollum possibly being underrated. And we'll just kind of chill. This is the last stream before training camp kind of starts. Players should be reporting between December 1st and December 5th, so probably the chillest stream we'll have for a while. Preseason starts in 11 days. 11 days, that's a week and a half, and we'll have post-game shows in a week and a half from now. Now, those post-game shows will kind of be like we did last year. At the start of the regular season, we'll have like some upgraded graphics and some cool stuff for you guys that we'll be rolling out, so I'm excited for that. The preseason post-game shows will be over here on Blazers Uprise Live, so make sure you subscribe here if you haven't already done so. This channel's been growing. It's been nice to see. And yeah, so I'm excited for that. I'm excited for preseason streams. It'll be fun to have post-game streams where we're not like completely ramped up and completely amped up and we don't really care if we win or lose, So I'm excited for that. How's your guys' week going? Is today a Monday or a Thursday? Today's a Monday.
Monday.
Okay, it's the start of the week. How was your guys' weekend? That's more appropriate. I'm literally forgetting my days here. What'd you guys do this weekend? Let me know down in the live chat. Eric, what'd you do this weekend, bro?
I had Thanksgiving on Saturday with my mom, so that was nice. Friday, went and got a Christmas tree and put that all up.
Nice.
Including my Robert Covington ornament, which he liked.
Was that a Darius? Oh, did he like that?
Yeah, he liked it. It was nice.
Was that originally a Darius Miles
It sure
ornament?
Was. Someone guessed Alan Crabb in the comments, but it was Darius Miles.
Nah, it was the older. Yeah, it was the older red jersey.
And then, Sunday put up lights on the house outside, and yeah.
Nice. I don't even remember. I don't even remember what I did this weekend, honestly. I watched some football. That's about it. I kind of just relaxed, and I finished one video. I've been working on a second. I've been waiting to put them out because December I want to do an upload streak. I want to try and do an upload streak at the start of December, like daily uploads, and see if I can keep up with that. So I'm a little bit ahead right now. Probably won't happen daily, but I got some content for you guys. I know I said I was going to do this weekend, but I was like, screw it. I'll get a little bit ahead and try and start a streak in December for fun, see how long I can go. So yeah, Giles' video is the one I have done that will be uploaded tomorrow, and then mailbag I'll probably do on Wednesday, and then because I think you released yours on Friday, so I'm going to do mine on Wednesday, and then we can get it back to Monday the following week or something like that, just to not have them too bunched up. But, so we'll talk about whatever you guys want us to talk about. We'll touch on Anfernee at some point. We'll touch on CJ at some point. But honestly, it was kind of hard to think of stream topics for this stream. It's been a while since it's been hard to think of stream topics for a stream. But yeah, it was kind of hard to think of even what to put in the thumbnail. So I put the two top talking points I've heard in the past couple days. I hear there's a lot of debate about CJ that I've seen online lately, and I kind of want to touch on that. And there is a lot of talk about, will Anfernee be in the rotation at the start of the season? The Batum signing is, I don't know. He's probably not going to play for them, and if he does play for them, he's probably not going to be that good. He's always hurt as well, so I don't really have any thoughts on that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think he's a good fit for what they want to do, just like for a few minutes off the bench. But yeah, it's not going to be anything of consequence, like make or breaking their season or anything like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he does, kind of improve a little bit getting out of Charlotte, because Charlotte obviously is a terrible team, and I feel like Batum's the type of guy, if he plays on a terrible team, he's really going to struggle. But if he's playing with, talented players around him, he might be able to fit in, distribute a little bit, knock down shots at a little higher clip, and actually look solid. So I'm interested to see if he is productive there in Los Angeles. People want to talk about Evan Turner. I assume, because I've had multiple people ask me that on Twitter. What do you think about Evan Turner signing on to be an assistant coach? Okay, when I read that tweet, I wasn't expecting it to end in like assistant coach. I was like, oh, he signed with the Celtics. Oh, he's going into coaching. Little surprised by that, but I mean the dude's not good. I saw some Blazer fans talk about bringing him back as a player this year, and it was just like no. I didn't want him. I didn't want him as a player. He's not good anymore at an NBA level. So he could be a good player developmental coach. So maybe he's, if that's something he wanted to do, congrats to him for going to a place where he's played before, and I know he likes the coaching staff there in Boston, and maybe he does a good job there. That's a good fit for him coaching wise, and it'll be interesting, just to see if he is trying to coach. It'll be interesting to see if he can become like a lead assistant or maybe even an NBA head coach someday. But honestly, it's just like, okay, cool, congrats to him. I don't really care as much as a lot of other Blazer fans do about him becoming an assistant coach for Boston.
So. Yeah, I thought it was strange as well. I have something to ask you. All right.
What's up?
So obviously, you get paid. That's what you're looking for, a big contract, all that stuff. But if you're just looking at his basketball career, do you think that contract is the reason why he's not in the league anymore? Because people associated him with not being worth it and a complete joke for how much he gets paid and all that stuff, whereas if he would have signed for the mid-level exception somewhere and was making $5 million those years, it might have been, his production to his money he was paid would have been a lot closer. And then when he's free of that contract, I think he would still get picked up, in my opinion.
I don't think it's because of that. Honestly, I think GMs are getting smarter. All right, they're not falling for the guys that chase stats. AKA the Russell Westbrook. He had almost no trade value. He has a terrible contract, but GMs aren't falling for the guy, Russell Westbrook chasing stats. Hassan Whiteside got a minimum contract after leading the league in blocks and having great stats. They're not falling for the guys that are putting up stats anymore. And also I feel like they're getting a little smarter as to getting the right guys that fit into their team. You look at Philadelphia with Daryl Morey and the guys they got, the way they fit. They got guys that fit this offseason after last offseason Elton Brand kind of screwed that up. So here's my point with Evan Turner in regards to that. He doesn't fit. He doesn't fit on a team. He's a guy who needs the ball in his hands, but he's nowhere near good enough with the ball in his hands to justify taking it out of other players' hands, if that makes sense, right? Even with a bench unit, if he's playing with a bench unit, you don't want him to be the main guy dominating the ball because he's not good enough as a ball dominant player. So you need him to be able to play off the ball. He literally can't do that. As a cutter, he can kind of finish around the rim, but he's not athletic and he's 6'7". And he doesn't have the longest wingspan, right? So, as a cutter, catching the ball around the rim, he's not explosive around the rim. He's not the best finisher as a cutter around the rim. As a spot-up three-point shooter, we all know how rough that was. So it's okay, he can't play off the ball, and he doesn't deserve to be a ball-dominant player because he's not good enough to play in that role. What role does he play then? Maybe as a vet mentor, 14th, 15th man, whatever. That's the only role I could see him in. And he might have gotten an offer like that, but maybe he wants to coach more than he wants to be an end of the bench warmer. You know what I mean? I think that GMs have gotten wiser about getting players that fit in. It's just how does Evan Turner fit anywhere?
Maybe he has some sort of agreement that if there's injuries or something, they'll sign him to the actual roster or something too. But I mean, I agree with most of what you're saying. I feel there are certain offenses he could fit in, and he does have a little bit of a post-up game, and he is a good, Dame's always talked about what a great locker room guy he is and stuff like that. So, I don't know. You see, Jared Dudley re-signing with the Lakers and stuff like that.
Did he actually re-sign? Was that
Yeah, he resigned today or yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that
thing is,
Turner couldn't get a minimum somewhere.
Thing is, Jared Dudley can shoot. You know what I mean? So he at least has one skill that fits in with a potential role with him on the floor. He's not good at anything else, but at least he can shoot. Evan Turner. If Evan Turner could shoot, he would probably be on an NBA roster. It's just the fact that he can't shoot just has shot him in the leg during his career.
Turner's not a bad defender though, and there's a lot of players like Rondé Hollis-Jefferson just signed today with Minnesota. There's a lot of players that can't shoot that hang around because they can play defense. And most of those guys can't handle the ball like Turner can. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's...
I always felt like Turner was an overrated defender.
Yeah.
I always felt like he was overrated.
I'm not saying he's great.
Yeah.
It's just
like he's not in my opinion, he's not like a Michael Kidd-Gilchrist or a Rondé Hollis-Jefferson type defender, you know? He doesn't have the hyphenated name, so obviously he's not as good of a defender. But beyond that, those guys are like bigger and more athletic, so they work more as like cutters, if that makes sense. Like being ran around screens off the ball, you know, setting screens, whatever. Whereas Turner doesn't have quite like the length or the athleticism as those guys, so it's like, okay, if you use him as a cutter, is he really going to be able to convert around the rim? That's kind of the issue I see with him. And like, obviously all those guys can't shoot the ball at all, but I feel like those guys can play a little bit more off the ball, and in an up-tempo offense, I mean, Evan Turner in transition is okay, I guess, but it's just, he's just such a weird player, man. He's such a weird player, and it's crazy because like coming out of college like over a decade ago, he was looked at as like a potential future all-star. He was the second pick in the draft, and it's just crazy how like, because I remember him playing at Ohio State, how good he was at Ohio State.
Like Brandon Roy.
Yeah, and then basically he's literally just worse at everything than Brandon Roy was, except for maybe defense. And it's like, no. If he could shoot threes at a high level, he could have been a good player. It would have opened up the rest of his game. That's a perfect example, because I talked about this in draft profiles. Like, I talked about certain prospects needing to be able to shoot the three ball in order to open up the rest of their game and fully maximize their other strengths. Evan Turner's a perfect example of a guy not having a three ball, and therefore it made the rest of the game, the rest of his offensive game harder, because he didn't fit in off the ball. With the ball in his hands, guys just sagged on him, so he couldn't really attack and like get downhill and make things happen for himself and other players. It was hard for him to like get past guys because guys would just sag off him and back up. So it kind of walled off him being able to truly maximize like his playmaking skills and his ball handling skills and his potential slashing ability. So that's a perfect example of a guy not being able to open up the rest of his game because he couldn't shoot the three ball.
Yeah, he does know how to use his body to create shots, though.
Yeah, just imagine though.
It's so weird because he's not quick at all. So he can create a little bit. Yeah.
Just imagine if guys had to play up on him and that he, you know, because he does have it. Yeah, I agree with that. He's really good using his body, getting his body into people and using his shoulder. Just imagine if guys had to play up on him, or if he like caught the ball and guys had to run at him and he could just attack closeouts. He would have been so much better. That's the thing. It's just like he just needed to learn how to shoot, and he never really did it. And that was the problem with him. So Randall says, Eric combed the hair for the stream. Major enhancement. You're enhanced, bro.
That's all people are talking about is
every stream Eric gets younger. Yeah, Eric looks older. Feel like it's pretty comparable. Congrats, Eric. You look young. But yeah, I haven't really been paying attention to any free agency stuff the past couple days. Like, I still have the noties on for Shams and Woj, but I haven't seen anything about like a couple of the guys you just named. So I guess I'm out of the loop.
Was Whiteside signing for the minimum after our last stream? I think it was, right?
Was it?
I think so. I don't know if we talked about it yet.
I mean, okay, yeah, we should talk about that. I should have put that in the stream title.
Oh, no, I think we did talk about it.
Oh, yeah, because I was like, I tried to tell y'all he ain't going to get signed and traded. I tried to, like, there were people saying, oh, he could go out and get $15 million a year. He could go out and get $10, $50 million a year. We were the people sitting here saying, like, I don't think he's going to get more than 6 or 8. Like, I think that's kind of his, like, range. Like, in that range, maybe taxpayer mid-level exception. He didn't even get that.
I thought the Blazers would maybe overpay just to keep him away from a team doing the mid-level exception, but that was back before we traded for Cantor and had better options. I'd rather have Cantor for $5 million than pay the mid-level exception or higher for Whiteside.
And let's just be glad Olshay's like kind of smart enough to realize, oh, stats don't equal everything. Because at the trade deadline, he's like, why would you trade the lead leader in blocks? And it's like, oh my God, Neil. You know what I mean?
He could have noticed that in February, and we would have been better off. But
yeah, I mean, granted, with the tax line not going up and the fact that we did have the trade player exception, I understand why he didn't trade him for like a mid-level tradable contract. I'm less harsh on him not trading Whiteside at the deadline because we got a replacement for cheap. For free, you know, like he's Enes Kanter's on a cheap contract, and we gave up Mario Hezonja, which giving up Mario Hezonja is good by itself. So we gave up Mario Hezonja for Enes Kanter, cheap contract, stayed under the tax. Like he manufactured that traded player exception and used it in order to offset the loss of Hassan Whiteside. You know what I mean? And if we trade Hassan Whiteside for like $1 million contract, we would have been more of a player in the trade market. We could have traded Ariza for Rocco, or, you know, if we traded Whiteside for like a Tony Snell on an expiring contract, we could have potentially traded Tony Snell in those 2 future firsts for Robert Covington and kept Ariza and had that be our starting 3 and 4. You know, that was kind of the thing with that. But then we would have potentially been over the tax. Probably wouldn't have been able to sign Derrick Jones Jr. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. You know, it would have been kind of like the salary would have been different. Wouldn't have been able to use our mid-level exception most likely. So we would have had to, you know, the offseason would have looked different. Who knows if it will look better. It would have given us more options. But, you know, the fact that he utilized the assets to fill the rotation and offset the loss of a Whiteside, you know, I'm kind of just cool with him not trading Whiteside. And then I'm cool with him, you know, I'm happy that he didn't overpay Whiteside to bring him back. Say, oh, look at the stats he put up. You know, he realized, okay, those stats, a lot of it is empty. And Hassan Whiteside isn't best in a backup role. Let's go out and get a guy who has been here before, was our starting center. He was playing with one arm as our starting center, and we made the Western Conference Finals with him as a starting center. Let's go in and bring him off the bench, and he'll be happy coming off the bench and be a really good backup center, because I still think Enes Kanter's a really good backup center. So the props to him for not being a sucker for the stats, and that goes back to my point I made earlier, is I feel like GMs are getting wiser and not completely like giving into the statistical production and overvaluing that.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to that is I can't quite give him credit for the tax thing, because at the time of the trade deadline, he had no idea that the stuff was going to happen to prevent the tax from going up. So I can't give him a pass for not doing that when there's no possible way he could have known that the salary cap was about to like take a dip or stay the same. But yeah, overall, I'm glad he decided to cut bait on his plan, if that was originally the plan, to keep Whiteside. And I feel like he utilized his assets enough, like you said, to minimize the cost of, or the decrease of losing an asset for nothing. And so yeah, I'm fine with it in the end. I still wish he would have traded him, but yeah.
Thomas Saransky says, I nailed Boston dumping Ennis and us getting him. When did you call that? Because we called that 2 days before it happened. We called that on the draft stream, and I hadn't even really thought about it until then. But then the draft, it's like Boston has some. They have the 14th, 26th, and 30th picks, and I was like, they probably want to dump Ennis. They weren't really playing him. They have like some good centers. They have Robert Williams. They have Daniel Tice, and they just signed Tristan Thompson for the full mid-level exception. I would have rather had Enes Kanter than Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson's overrated. I don't know why they dumped. Let me just talk about this move real quick. Why would they give up the 30th pick to dump Enes Kanter, who was making $5.5 million, and then sign Tristan Thompson for the full mid-level exception at $9 million a year? I don't understand. I would rather have the 30th pick and Enes Kanter at $5.5 million a year than Tristan Thompson at $9 million a year. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, Tristan Thompson's a much, much better defender.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I mean, I guess that's what they're thinking, is they just need a center who rebounds and plays defense, because they have enough scoring at their other positions. So I think he fits in a little better with their system than Kanter did.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, if I'm just looking at it in a vacuum, I'd rather have Kanter for $5 million than Thompson for $10 million.
I mean, if you like, advanced defensive stats are like very noisy and like not truly indicative of anything. But if you value defensive box plus minus, the last 3 years, Tristan Thompson has been a negative 1.9, a negative 1.9, and a negative 1.3.
The last two teams, the whole team has been garbage.
True. Yeah, I mean, because before that though, he's had a negative defensive box plus minus his entire career, even when he played with LeBron though. So if you value that stat, I don't know, I don't overvalue it, but like he's a decent rebounder, but he's not efficient. Last season, his true shooting percentage was, why did I think it was 51? It was 54%, which is below average efficiency for a center. He was more efficient when he had a guy like LeBron, so maybe he's more efficient this year, but I don't know. He's just like a dime. He's a player that's a dime a dozen. I think he's a solid defender. I wouldn't say he's like really good. I would say he's solid. But like Hassan Whiteside is solid. They could have had Hassan Whiteside on the minimum. I don't think Hassan Whiteside's worse than Tristan Thompson. I think Hassan Whiteside is, maybe he wouldn't have been happy coming off the bench, so maybe he would have been worse, but it's just like, I don't understand the price tag on that. I don't get that.
I just think Whiteside is like a non-starter for a lot of teams. But Tristan Thompson's best strength fits in perfect in the modern NBA, and that's his ability to guard guards on the perimeter when switched in a pick and roll. And he's one of the few centers that you can truly switch and be okay with him on an island against a guard. That's his best strength, and that's perfect skill for the NBA, and that's why he got paid. If he didn't have that skill, I agree with you. He's completely you can pretty much get anything else he does off the bargain market. But yeah, that one skill got him paid.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking at his defense at the center position. Defensive versatility from centers is definitely highly valued now in the NBA. So yeah, I mean that part now it makes a little bit more sense to me. Now that you pointed that out. But yeah, I mean, and here's what's funny though is we were sitting there at draft night like Boston could try and dump Enes Kanter using the 30th pick just to get off his salary. We could use it, our trade a player exception, and get Enes Kanter in the 30th pick. Thing is, we, instead of doing that, gave up Mario Hezonja to Memphis.
And didn't have to attach an asset.
Yeah, basically it's like we could have either gotten Enes Kanter in the 30th pick for like a little bit of cash or whatever, or we could trade Mario Hezonja and not take back the 30th pick. And we chose a second. Bro, that's so annoying to me because if we didn't give Mario Hezonja a damn player option, we could have had the 30th pick. We wouldn't have had to give up Mario Hezonja. We could have literally taken back Enes Kanter and the 30th pick because that's what Boston gave up. But we wanted to get out from Mario Hezonja, so we basically gave up the 30th pick to get out from Mario Hezonja. I haven't even really thought about this hard until now.
Well, the only thing about that, if we're going by the cap rules now, then it would have been a guaranteed contract, and it would have been more than the minimum, I think, so, or right around the minimum.
Yeah, I mean,
it might have messed up our whole tax situation.
I mean, who was on the board? Theo Maledon? You stash him for a year.
Maledon.
You stashed Maledon for a year. You know what I mean?
I don't think he was willing to be stashed.
Yeah, but if you call him and say, you will have a guaranteed NBA contract when you go over, we have the 30th pick, but we want to stash you for a year. I feel like, okay, you be stashed for a year and then get a guaranteed NBA contract compared to like a second round contract, which I don't know what type of contract he got. I don't know. Maybe you're right on that, but yeah, I mean, you just figure out the tax situation there, you know? Like, you figure things out. You don't sign CJ Ellaby, and then, I mean, they still would have been over the tax, so you would have had to give up on a guy like a Giles. But, I'd probably rather have Maledon than Giles. You know? It probably would have been Maledon or Giles, but I'd rather have Maledon because it's going to be hard to keep Giles. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. It's going to be hard to keep Giles, okay? Because either he pops off, and then we can't afford him. We have to use part of the mid-level exception on him, and I don't know if that makes sense for us next offseason with, like, all the bigs that we have. Maybe we'll let Cater walk and Mello retires, and then we have like some openings. But or we don't play him, which I think this is probably the more likely scenario. We don't play him that much. He's not like the happiest with that, and then he goes somewhere else next offseason. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's more likely that he is not back next season than he is here. Harry Giles. So I'd rather have a guy like Theo Maledon who could, like, great value 30th pick. You basically use the trade player exception to get Enes Kanter and Maledon you can have for 4 years team control, and then he's a restricted free agent, so you can still kind of control that situation, and he's like a really underrated prospect and would be a really good fit as a third guard if Anfernee doesn't pan out. Like, yeah.
I doubt we would have drafted Maledon even if we
yeah, true. I mean, then there are other prospects on the board at that point. I kind of forget who's on the board. But I know that's the guy you would have. Yeah, that's the guy you would have drafted there, though.
Oh yeah.
Considering in our mock draft you took him 16.
Desmond Bane is the one that was drafted.
Yeah. I'm not really a fan of his game, but.
Yeah, Caleb Scrubb was also on the board when we picked at 46.
Yeah, and bro? Okay, yeah, and I said this at the time. Don't get too suckered into draft rumors around the Blazers, right? We were interested in Poku at 16. We traded 16. Oh, but we were interested in Scrubb at potentially the 16th pick. Like, there was whispers like, they might take Scrubb at 16. But he was on the board at 46 and we took CJ Ellaby over him. Like, I don't believe any draft rumors regarding the Blazers, ever.
Here's what would have happened. We would have taken CJ Ellaby at 30. Because knowing Neil, like when he has a guy he's locked in on, like that's his guy, right? And he'll draft him early. He doesn't care.
I don't think he would have taken him at 30. I don't. Here's who you had on the board: Desmond Bane, Tyrell Terry is meh. Like I don't want Tyrell Terry. Vernon Carey, Daniel Oturu, like Oturu long term I think will be a rotation player as a backup center. So it might have been better to have him instead of a Giles because we would have had control over him. Giles is a better player and a better prospect right now, but we don't have control over Giles like beyond this year. Tillman was on the board. Trevin's guy, Elijah Hughes, was on the board. He would have been interesting. Jamias Ramsey was on the board. That was a guy I liked. There's some interesting players on the board. Maybe you would have went with Ellaby, but then maybe 46 we use it on a Jay Scrubb or someone. Maybe we were actually a little bit interested in him. I don't know. It's just kind of like, I just wish, bro, it just comes back to why did we give Mario Hezonja a player option on that minimum contract? Why did we need to do that? I don't understand, like, why? Why did he give Mario Hezonja a player option?
Because believe it or not, he was actually sought after, and signing for the minimum was actually, like in Olshay's mind was like, oh wow, this guy's going to sign a minimum coming off a mid-level exception, you know?
Yeah.
Because he turned us down for the mid-level exception the year before, or maybe that was 2 years ago. No, it was 1 year ago. We tried to sign him before we signed Rodney Hood or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just like you don't give a player that bad 2 years of control over his contract. You give him a 1 year contract.
That's the
Like I get that part of it. They overvalued the hell out of him, which I said at the time. I'm like, why are they signing this guy? He's trash. I kind of had the same reaction to Derrick Jones Jr., but I'm not like sticking to that. I actually have hope for Derrick Jones Jr. I had no hope for Mario. I maybe got suckered into like the preseason hype. He had a good preseason game, and I was trying to be optimistic. And he looked good. But I was steadfast with the Mario thing. I haven't been really steadfast with Derrick Jones Jr. thing. Like he's obviously a lot better, and it's more of like, oh, he's a mid-level exception signing, and I would have had other players. But Mario, I was just like, no. Same thing with Stauskas. I was just like, no. And I got hyped for Stauskas his first game against the Lakers, but. I'll get hyped when bad players do good for us. Of course I will. That's dope, but doesn't make them not bad players. Granted, Stauskas is back in the league. I don't know why, but he's back. He's on the Milwaukee Bucks. They got Connaughton, Stauskas, and do they have another former Blazer?
They don't have Rolo or
Yeah, Rolo left. Rolo
the
got
West
paid.
anymore.
Yeah. But they got Stauskas and Pat Connaughton. Don't know why Stauskas is back in the league, but congrats to him, I guess.
Yeah.
Torrey Craig is not former Blazer Thomas Saransky. But that's my guy. Do you think that Milwaukee team is better or worse?
I don't know, because George Hill was so good for them last year. So that's going to be hard to replicate him. They also lost Bledsoe.
For Drew Holiday, is that a...
But they got Drew Holiday, yes. I don't know, they're probably better. It's just, I don't know.
It's just...
I felt like they gave up too much, but then they made some okay signings, but then they also made some weird signings, and Augustine's kind of a weird fit on that team, and...
Yeah, would you rather have point guard rotation of Holiday and Augustine or Bledsoe?
Of course, Holiday and Augustine, but...
Yeah. I mean, if Augustine can get back to how he played 2 years ago when he was shooting over 40% from three, he could kind of replace that George Hill, offensive production. He's not the defender George Hill is. And George Hill's not a great defender, but DJ Augustine is not good whatsoever. But he could maybe replace the offensive role. And we'll get great shots there, so I'm kind of expecting him to bounce back a little bit. So that part's better, but Lopez was still a decent backup center, and now their backup center is Bobby Portis, or maybe he's their backup four.
That was a weird signing too.
He is one of the most overrated players in the NBA. One of the most overrated players in the NBA. I don't like his game. I don't know. He doesn't defend, right? He's a big who doesn't defend. He's a very poor defender. And he's a inefficient volume scorer who doesn't play defense and doesn't he passes a little bit, but he's an inefficient volume scorer who doesn't defend. He literally shot 15 shots per 36 minutes last year. Granted, he played for New York, so there's a lot of shots to go around. He shot 53% true shooting percentage.
You're going to make Randall Pink Floyd mad.
Why?
About his... I don't know. For some reason, he loves all those ex-Knick players.
He shot the past 2 years. His true shooting percentage has been 53%. Right? He literally does not get to the free throw line ever. For a big, that's very bad. Big should be able to get to the free throw line at least 4 or 5 times per 36 minutes. If you're playing inside, you should. He gets to the free throw line a little over 2 times per 36. He shoots about... I don't know. He shoots under 50% from inside the arc, which isn't good. His 3-point shooting last year was 36%. I don't know. He's just not. He's a very mediocre player to me, and people think he's good.
Yeah. So, did you see this? Reese sent me this tweet about Utah. They said that Azubuike was, according to their analytic process, was the second player on their draft board, and when they made their actual draft board, he was top 10 on their list or something.
Wait, of the entire draft?
Yeah. And Philip Lindsay came out and said it too. I mean, some of that might have just been GM trying to hype up his pick or whatever, but
I mean,
So I told Reese this. It's like 2K how they, because he shot 74% from the field, so you plug that in and it looks awesome, but that your analytics can't realize that he cannot shoot within outside of 3 feet from the basket. He can't even make a basket. So and he shot 40% from the free throw line.
Here's the problem with that. Analytics based on college stats, they can look great, but it's not taking into account if their game translates from the college level to the NBA level. Because certain players' games will translate almost seamlessly from college level to the NBA level. If they're really good analytically in college and, based off the eye test, because you have to actually watch them to determine this, and you think they translate really well to the NBA, from college to the NBA, then that's going to be a top pick in the draft. But the thing is, most GMs would value that player very, very highly. The thing is, you get down to the late first and you got a guy like Azubuike who, his college analytics look phenomenal, but his game doesn't translate to the NBA because he's a slow-footed big. He dominated in college due in part to how much bigger and more athletic he was than the big men he was going against, right? He's not going to have those same advantages in the NBA. And in the NBA, on defense, you get exploited if you're a very slow-footed center. So he's going to get exploited in like pick and roll situations. Defensively, he's not going to be anywhere near as good of a defender. And then offensively, his game doesn't translate because he's not going to be able to score in the same ways inside that he did in college. So that's a problem. His game doesn't translate. So just looking at the analytics is a big mistake. Granted, Utah has been a decent drafting team. They got Donovan Mitchell. I know that was a draft day trade, but they got Donovan Mitchell, and I don't know if their current front office was there when they got Gobert, but that was a really good pick. So they've had some decent selections, but that whole thought process is just that's just flawed to me, because you're not taking into account how their game transfers.
Yeah, basically, like the guy you just mentioned, Rudy Gobert. If he turns out to be like him, then I guess you could say then maybe that was a good pick, but
nowhere near as big though.
On every single draft prospect or draft like mock draft, Azubuike was like a mid to late second round pick. So it's kind of weird that, I mean, I thought he was kind of a reach going in the first round, let alone being like second on your board or whatever. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But we see that all the time. Like, I know some analytic guys who had like Vernon Carey as their number one prospect, or like a lot of those big guys, because for some reason the formulas and stuff just tend to favor guys who put up good numbers like that. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, I said he's nowhere near as big. He's kind of close, but Gobert is like 7'1", 7'2" with a 7'9" wingspan. Azubuike's like 7 foot with a 7'7" wingspan. So actually, I guess he's kind of close. But Gobert is just like such a smart defender. You know, like, I don't think there is a smarter defender at the center position than a Rudy Gobert, right? So it's like, if Rudy Gobert wasn't a smart defender, he would probably struggle because he's not like the quickest footed, like he doesn't have quick feet, but he makes up for it just with the mental aspect of his defense. Azubuike, like, I just meh. That's just meh to me. And the thing is, Neil Olshey said like CJ Ellaby is an analytical like Green Lantern or something. He called it. He said like everything analytical turned up green for him. The thing is, like, he's 6'6" and can shoot. You know what I mean? Like, a 6'6" shooter in college translates pretty well to the NBA. Like, they can still play off the ball, like, either wing spot, shooting guard, small forward, and they can shoot threes. Like, that translates pretty decently. Neil Olshey did note that he was more of a playmaker like the year before that, and his role kind of changed, and he like kind of some of the playmaking things he saw the year before. So, I mean, I don't know, made the pick sound better. It'll be interesting to watch Ellaby in that regard, but that's another GM who, you know, was just raving about how a prospect looked analytically.
Yep.
But
let's talk about Anfernee.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this when I built the rotations, but I don't understand why people think he's going to play. He is the 13th best player on our roster right now? No, 12th. 12th or 13th, depending on if you have Nas over him, right? He's the 12th or 13th best player on our roster, and people think he's going to get minutes when we're trying to contend. When we have a shooting guard who we've staggered in as the backup point guard in the past and who can do an okay job. Like, he's not great playing the backup point guard off the bench, but he's still like, I would rather have a bench rotation of like or a bench backcourt of CJ and Trent and get Trent more minutes, or maybe get Rodney Hood more minutes because you're playing Trent more at the 2 because you're not having to play Anfernee at a guard spot. I'd rather have that than Anfernee and CJ, or Anfernee and Trent, or whatever. Like, I don't understand why people, want him in the rotation. I understand, like, being, hopeful about his long-term production and wanting to see him, develop. I understand that part of it. But at this point, winning trumps developing. Like, winning is more important than developing an Anfernee Simons. He'll still develop in practices. We have a decent coaching staff that develops players even if they're not playing. So it's not like he still can't develop. It's just, we got to win. He's the 12th or 13th best player on our roster. We don't have enough minutes to go around for a 12 or 13 man rotation. I don't get it.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to that is, I mean, he could improve and be better. Like maybe going into his third year, we've seen a third year jump off of several young Blazers in the past. Um, I mean, maybe he plays so well in practice that he earns some minutes and starts to get a look. I think it's going to look a lot like the bubble did for Anfernee, where he basically didn't play at all the first few games, and then he only got minutes when there were injuries or if like we were really struggling or there was foul trouble or something like that. So like he got a shot, and much like Trent last year, he's just going to have to take better advantage of his minutes than he did last year. Because if he plays like he did last year, he's definitely not going to be part of the rotation. But if he can come in, and hit a few threes, and I mean, he's certainly capable of scoring in bunches. So if he has a couple of good games when he does get minutes, I could see him maybe earning a few minutes here and there. He increases minutes throughout the season. But yeah, it's going to be really tough, and it's hard for a young player to go into a game knowing that you have to be like basically perfect or you're not going to get any more minutes the rest of the game. So I feel bad for him that he's in that situation kind of because I would like to see him actually get a legit shot, but I just don't see it on this roster this year.
He's still young, he still has a ton of time. Yeah. Like he's what?
We still have 2 years left on his rookie deal too.
How old is he right now? 20, 21? I'll look it up.
I think he's
21. He turned 21 in June. Like he's still extremely young. You know what I mean? Like he still has 5-6 years until he reaches his prime, right? So still has a lot of time to develop. I just don't understand why Blazer fans expect it because of how deep our roster is. And literally we saw him not get minutes in the bubble, and we saw us stagger Dame and CJ, which we've done almost the entire time we've had those two like playing legitimate minutes in Portland. Like since Aldridge left, we've almost always staggered those guys. Olshey in his press conference said that basically alluded to staggering those guys. I don't understand why people think Anfernee's going to play minutes, and I don't understand why people think he has to, and I just don't understand. I just don't understand that.
I think the people who think that are basing it off of we don't have like a legitimate backup point guard, and they're not thinking in terms of minutes because I see all these rotation minutes where it has like Trent playing like 14 minutes and all this kind of stuff. It's like no, like Trent's not gonna. I'd rather play Trent 24 minutes or 26 minutes than have Simons play 10 minutes or whatever. Unless, like I said, he's just so dominant in training camp and practice and stuff that he earns those minutes. But I don't think we should force him minutes like we did last year. I think last year was the perfect year to try to speed up his development and give him that opportunity. He obviously wasn't ready completely. I'm not giving up on him at all. Like you said, he's still under contract for 2 more years. He's still young enough to where he doesn't have to play this year or else we're going to lose him or anything like that. So I think, he's just going to be there for depth and in case things happen throughout the course of a game. And there might be games where instead of just sitting Dame and CJ like completely out of games and load managing them, they just only play like 2 quarters of a game or something, and are down around 24 minutes instead of 36, and there might be an opportunity. Maybe we're better than last year, so we blow out some teams and he can get some minutes at the end of games. But
we should. There should be multiple games this year where we have a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter and we can toss Anfernee in there and like give Dame extra rest. And then if it gets cut back to 12, which it shouldn't because we're really deep, and if we're playing against a bad team, like that lead shouldn't get cut. But the Blazers, knowing the Blazers will probably get cut regardless. But in that situation, you can toss Anfernee in there, get him some run, see how he plays. Like he'll get minutes here and there. I'm not saying he won't get minutes here and there. I'm just saying like a regular part of our rotation. I don't understand because here's the thing, like, bro, I am not going to play Gary Trent Jr. 15 minutes instead of 25 minutes in order to get Anfernee 10 minutes. That doesn't make sense to me. Gary Trent Jr. is a far better player. And it doesn't make sense to me the whole thing like, oh, well, we don't have a backup point guard, so we need Anfernee to play because like we need a backup point guard. Anfernee's not any more of a point guard than CJ McCollum. And it's just like the people that say like, it's just, I don't know. I don't understand how some people who have supposedly watched the Blazers for years can't grasp the concept of staggering Dame and CJ. We've done it for years. Like, I don't understand that. It just the whole thing's just, it just doesn't make sense to me because Anfernee isn't any more of a point guard than CJ is. So you run CJ at point guard and get a guy like Trent or Hood more minutes instead of a guy like Anfernee, and we're a better team for it. It's pretty simple to me.
Yeah, I keep going back to because Anfernee Simons spent a lot of time with Darren Collison, hopefully learning how to be a true point guard and maybe work on his ball handling and stuff like that. So he still could improve and be those things we need him to be and become the backup point guard. But we designed our roster 10, 11 men deep, so we don't have issues. Yeah, we don't have to rely on that. So if CJ is not the backup point guard, we're going to have some very unhappy people with their roles and their minutes.
Exactly.
And I don't think that's going to be good long term for this team. Obviously, if they're winning a lot of games, that can kind of temper that a little bit. Winning kind of cures everything, but as soon as they lose like 3 in a row or something like that, there's going to be a lot of people upset that they're not getting more time or getting more shots or, someone like Gary Trent, who's in a contract year, isn't going to be very happy only playing 16 minutes a game if that's what it is. And there's no reason that he deserves to play such little. I mean, he deserves to have like a legitimate role on this team after his performance last year. And maybe if he struggles or isn't playing as well as he did last year, then you could maybe put a different person in that role, and maybe Anfernee Simons gets a shot. But I don't think Simons has done enough in the past to earn a rotation on the specific roster.
He needs to show he's like a top 9 player on in the rotation. If he improves drastically and shows that he's like a top 9 player on the roster, then yeah, you should be the backup point guard, because he's a top 9 player. And that's the thing, you play the best players. And we have guys that are versatile in terms of their positions, so it's not like something where, we have to play the 11th man on the roster because we need a player at his position and we bench the guy who's the 10th best player on the roster. You know what I mean? It's just literally the best 9, 10 players play. That's how it should be. If we're really trying to win, right, we have this potentially best roster Dame has ever played next to. We've had our best offseason under Neil Olshey. All right, okay, it's time to win now. It's time to play the best players and go out and win. So therefore, like Hugh said, maybe people think Dame and CJ get more rest this year. If that's the case, you play Gary Trent Jr. 28 minutes a game, or you play Rodney Hood once he's ready, more minutes. More minutes at small forward, and maybe you play Rodney Hood. Maybe there isn't enough minutes at small forward. You could play Rodney Hood a little bit at the backup too. You play your best players more, right? Like, honestly, there's not enough minutes to go around as is with Anfernee out of the rotation for guys like a Trent or a Hood if once he's fully back, or potentially Derek Jones Jr. if he works out here, or like a Harry Giles. We're
talking about Giles not even playing. So.
Yeah, and here's the thing: like Giles can play the 4, right? Who's our projected starting 4? It's Rocco, right? You play Giles a little bit more. Rocco plays more 3. Maybe that ends up to Rodney Hood playing more 2. You know what I mean? You don't have those minutes available at the 2 for Rodney Hood here and there if Anfernee Simons is the backup point guard, because instead of CJ playing 24 minutes per game at the starting 2 and 12 minutes off the bench at the point guard, you have CJ playing 35 minutes per game at the starting 2 guard, so you don't have the minutes to go there. You'd have to basically, if you play Anfernee Simons as a full-time backup point guard, there's only 13, 14, maybe 15 minutes per game of the backup 2 for Gary Trent Jr. He would have to play more 3, right? And you have Rodney Hood, Derek Jones Jr., and potentially some Rocco at the 3 already. So even Gary Trent Jr. there doesn't make sense. Rocco would have to be the full-time 4. You'd have to keep Hood's and Derek Jones Jr.'s minutes 20 apiece. Rocco would have to be the full-time 4. That cuts into the power forward minutes. When Collins comes back, we got Collins, Cantor, Giles at the 4 and 5.
Melo.
Yeah, see, I even forgot about Melo. You know what I mean? That's the thing. We got too many players. It doesn't work if Anfernee plays consistent rotation minutes. If we deal with a couple injuries, then obviously that opens up spots. Yeah, okay, maybe that makes sense. We're not even talking about Nasir Little, who I think might be more ready to play this year than Anfernee Simons as well. He might be more ready. I think maybe you could make the argument that Nasir Little was better for the team last year than Anfernee Simons was, right? And he kind of provides what we're looking for this year in terms of like athletic, versatile, defensive forwards. So, yeah, it just doesn't sort us out. In that situation, Anfernee Simons would be the 13th best player in a rotation if you value Nasir over him. So, yeah, I just don't see it happening for him. Next year, maybe contract year, but it's like, bro, if
speaking of contract years, though, in the past, I could definitely see this organization only giving Trent like 16 to 18 minutes just to keep his value down a little bit, heading into free agency. Same with the Zach Collins. Like, if he's hurt all year and barely plays and stuff, that could get us to re-sign him for cheap if we're still thinking of him as a part of the core moving forward. But this year, man, like Dame's in his 30s, like it's go time. Like I don't think we can afford to do that stuff. It's like just let the best players play and put the best chance on the floor to have the win. Don't play politics or care about who like we need to develop or whatever. We should just put the best lineups on the floor and try to win ball games. And that should result in us being better so we don't have every game having to fight till the end and being close and stuff like that. But I just don't think this is the right year to try and develop guys. And that's unfortunate for Little and Ant because I do like both of those guys as developmental projects, just not this season.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a question in chat that I want to get to right here. It's been spammed a couple times, but Hugh says, how do you guys think this team rates against Dame's first/second year team? That's an interesting question. I would say it's better than any team Dame's ever played next to. I would say it's better than the rotation where we had... once you incorporate a Flalo, maybe it's more of a debate. But... let's just look at that team. You had Dame, Matthews, Batum, Aldridge, Lopez. Then off the bench, you had a Flalo, Darrell Wright, Chris Kaman was there. Steve Blake there during that year? A Flalo year? Okay,
yeah, because he was traded the year after. Yep.
So that was the bench.
Mason Plumlee trade.
I didn't like that bench.
Prisbilla wasn't on that team, Beavis.
No, Prisbilla never played with Dame. Prisbilla was gone a couple years.
We traded Barton and
we traded Thomas Robinson and Will Barton and Victor Claver and a first-round pick, which became Malik Beasley for Aflalo, which obviously that trade backfired, but that wasn't really due to the trade. That was due to Wesley Matthews hurting himself. But that team was really good. Like, that team was playing great with, like, Aflalo off the bench, but I think this team's just as good. The starting lineup might not be quite as good, but I don't know. Dame leading a team is better than Aldridge leading a team, right? Let's just look at it straight across. Dame is a lot better than he was that second year. Or that third year with the Flalo. Dame is a lot better now, right? CJ versus Wes, like Wes might have been a better fit next to Dame, but CJ's better than Wes. Batum versus, I don't know, Rodney Hood, like a healthy Rodney Hood. Batum maybe a little bit better.
He had a horrible year that year.
Yeah, but he had a horrible year that year, so like that's kind of a wash to me. Rocco versus Aldridge. Aldridge back then, better player, but Rocco is a better fit next to Dame. Like, I don't think the difference there is that much. The talent difference is bigger than like the difference in terms of like how impactful and productive those guys are, like for our situation.
But Aldridge in his prime is the best player by far that Dame's ever played with, whether it was a good fit or not. Just overall skills wise, he's the best player.
I put CJ up comparative to Aldridge. I don't know. Aldridge was probably a little better than CJ, but I think it's pretty comparable.
Like 4 or 5 time All-Star.
Yeah, I mean, but like
is all NBA player a couple years. Like
he was averaging 22 and 10. You know what I mean? Like CJ averaging 22 as well. You know, and obviously not the rebounds because he's a guard.
Yeah.
But like Aldridge, Yeah, Aldridge was a solid rebounder and a solid defender, so those aspects were better. But offensively, I think it was pretty comparable. And like CJ has taken over playoff games, not quite to the 46 points that Aldridge put up game 1 against Houston, or maybe that was game 2. I know he had like 43 and 46 game 1, game 2 against Houston. But we like ran everything through him, and CJ is like the second option in getting 22 a game, you know. So I don't know if you had Aldridge as the second option next to Dame, would he be putting up those numbers?
Yeah, he
because we force fed him the ball. If
yeah, I mean,
he wouldn't be getting the same.
Arguing fit wise, but CJ is not the greatest fit next to Dame either. So like, and he still scores 20 points.
I mean, but I don't know, man. Like Aldridge averaged how many? What season was that? That was the last season he was here. He averaged 23.4 points per game. I would think that would be a little bit lower if Dame was the first option instead of him, because he was the first option still.
Yeah, but I mean, there's plenty of room for them both to succeed.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying you wouldn't succeed. I'm saying it'd be probably around 20, 21 points per game.
Think of how much better Dame is in the pick and roll now, and Aldridge is like the perfect pick and pop or pick and roll big.
Yeah, I'm not.
At least in his prime, yeah.
I'm not saying he's not the best player Dame's ever played with. I'm just saying it's closer than I feel like some people would think, because people underrate CJ, and we'll get into that in a second. Because CJ's gotten underrated, and we're gonna have to talk about that. That's my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but we'll have to get into that. But I mean, just straight across, like starting lineup wise, and then Nurkic is a lot better than Robin Lopez, right? Would you rather? Okay, which do you think was better front court wise? I'm curious about this one. Aldridge and Lopez back then, or Rocco and Nurkic now?
I still think we're way underselling what Aldridge did, despite how I think of him personally. Yeah, I don't know. Rolo's by far the worst player there. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty close if you compare 2-3 versus 1-4, if that makes sense. I don't know who I'd pick though.
I think Rocco and Nurkic front court is a lot better defensively.
Yeah, defensively for sure, especially in today's NBA. Maybe if we're playing, 10 years ago, it might be a different story.
Yeah.
So Beavis said this, and I confirmed it. Aldridge is a 7-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA. CJ's never sniffed one of those honors.
I mean, but bro, like we're gonna All-Star appearances, All-NBA appearances. I don't like judging players that way. You know that. Like it's. I mean, Dame missed the All-Star game when he averaged 25. No, in a season. Wait, was that the season he averaged 27 points per game? Then he missed the All-Star game. I forget. Let me look it up. But like Dame's missed the All-Star game before. Twice, actually, and then he got in as an injury replacement, like a second year. Twice, where he was having phenomenal seasons. So, I don't know. Like, in terms of the accolades.
Like last year, Booker last year.
Yeah, Bradley Beal averaged 30 points per game last year and 6 assists and missed the All-Star game. Dame, the season he averaged 25, missed the All-Star game. The season he averaged 27, he missed the All-Star game. Dame is only a 5-time All-Star, but, like, he's far, far better, you know what I mean? And CJ playing in the West with like a stacked backcourt, like the guards are stacked in the West. If the Blazers were in the East, CJ would have had at least made a couple All-Star games, because we would have had a good enough record where like, okay, they deserve 2 All-Stars, and then there wouldn't have been the guard competition, because there was the past 5 years there's been a lot better guards in the West than the East. So I don't know, like. Yeah, Aldridge obviously better player. I just think it's closer than people will give it credit for. It's closer. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that CJ is the better player.
I came into this show like gonna completely back you on the underrated thing, but I can't get behind that they're even close to the same.
So do you think they're in different worlds?
Yeah.
Bro, I don't.
All NBA is different than All Star too.
I can't believe you're using All NBA to evaluate a player, man. Come on, man. It's all. Oh, I
just think you're kind of diminishing Aldridge's ability.
Yeah, but bro, you're like he wasn't particularly. I mean, like CJ isn't particularly efficient, but like Aldridge wasn't particularly efficient those years either. His last 2 years in Portland. His true shooting percentage, second to last year, 50.7%. His true shooting percentage, his last year in Portland, this is for a big, 52.8%. Yeah. Like, he was less efficient than CJ is.
Yeah, but bigs didn't shoot threes as much as they do now either.
Yeah, but that shouldn't necessarily hurt your true shooting, would it? I mean, like, he literally
3-point.
His 2-point percentage his last 2 years in Portland, 46%, 47.5%. Yeah, you know, so it's like, and yeah, he got 23 points per game. Yeah, but CJ's more efficient at a position that I think is generally a little bit less efficient than a big man. You know what I mean? But granted, Aldridge kind of like played like a bit of a perimeter player, you know, so not to knock him, but it's just like 23 points per game, having the offense ran through you as the number one option and being less efficient than a CJ who getting 21, 22 points per game as a second option. Like, I think those guys are closer than, I don't think those guys are like worlds apart, in my opinion. Aldridge back then, like, yeah, Aldridge is better. I just think it's kind of close. Aldridge was built to be like a second option, I feel like, which CJ is. Actually, we'll have to talk about that. CJ is the number one option. I'm fine having CJ on this team, but I'm so curious as to what CJ would do as a number one option.
Yeah.
You know?
See, I mean, obviously we've seen it in the games Dame's missed. He averages, like 27 and 8 or something like that. It's really good. I just think he'd be comparable like a Beal where he puts up great numbers. I don't know if that'll necessarily translate to wins, though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Definitely have to have the right team around.
We've won games against decent teams without Dame because CJ has played well, though. You know what I mean? Like, it has seemed like I remember we beat OKC a couple years ago without Dame, and I think we were missing somebody else impactful, and it was like OKC. They had Melo, PG, Russ. Obviously, you know, those are that team was a little bit overrated, but. Like, we won without Dame, and CJ popped off that game, and CJ has been pretty good. So that's why I'm curious, is like, okay, would it just be like him putting up good stats on a bad team that doesn't win, a la Zach LaVine or Bradley Beal? Could he be the number one option on a winning team, putting up like 26, 27 points per game and 6 assists? Because here's the thing, he is a better playmaker when he's playing like the starting point guard without Dame. He is a better playmaker. Like, we've seen that. He makes the right passes. He isn't as, like, he plays more within the flow of the offense. So maybe that's where people will talk about them not being
sometimes
a great fit. Yeah, but he still has his moments. But he plays a little bit more within the flow of the offense, and he's just a little bit more like he picks his spots better. And yeah, he just plays better. Granted, he would be game planned against as the number one option if he was like the number one player on a team consistently for an entire season, whereas like some teams might have been preparing for Dame, and then Dame doesn't play, so they didn't really have a game plan in place for CJ, and teams hadn't seen him, how he plays as number one option. But it's just like, if he is the number one option, man, I feel like he would be getting at least 25, 26 points per game and at least 5.5 assists per game.
The only thing I'll say about his defensive, the defense was like game planning for him. He's a tough player to stop. It's kind of like, not to this degree, but like Melo in his prime could score so many different ways. Like, you could game plan for him all you wanted, but you're still not going to prevent him from getting his shots up. And CJ is the same type of thing. Like, he can get to the mid-range against pretty much any kind of defense and get those shots. So I've always thought that it's weird that CJ can have that mindset in games where Dame's not there, but when he's running the second unit, he can't have that mindset. Like within a game, you can't change going from being a scorer to more of a ball handler. Okay, I knew Blockboy was going to say something about that. I did not say that he scores in as many ways as Melo. I did not say that. Come on, man. Listen, I said he's
that
hard
comment doesn't exist anymore.
But no, I just said Melo's one of the best scorers of all time. Like, I'm not comparing CJ to him in his prime. I'm just saying, like, he he gets his shot off in ways that maybe even like Dame can't even do. I'm not saying that's a good thing necessarily, but like I think he could get his buckets whether he was being defensive game plan for or not.
Yeah,
he would struggle with the Dame double team.
Yeah,
so.
Here's how I'd explain it. Dame gets the shots he wants. CJ doesn't necessarily always get the shots he wants, but he's so creative and can shoot so many different types of shots that he's still able to get up like shots that he can make, if that makes sense. So he has like a little bit more in his bag, whereas Dame can like get to the rim much more consistently and can just shoot off screens, and it's almost impossible to guard like what Dame does well, which is why Dame is more efficient too, I feel like, because he gets shots that he's really comfortable with very consistently, whereas CJ isn't quite as consistent getting like the shots he loves necessarily, so he has to be more creative and shoot different types of shots, and sometimes they're not considered great shots. So I think that's kind of like the efficiency difference. Like that explains part of the efficiency difference. It doesn't explain it at all, but that explains part of it, I think.
Yeah, there's two things in my mind why the efficiency isn't the same. One is CJ doesn't get to the free throw line, which would really help him as long as he doesn't shoot like 74% or whatever he shot last year. Because he led the league a couple of years ago at like 92%. So even if he's at like 80 to 85% shooting free throws, and he's getting to the line like 5 or 6 times a game instead of 2 or 3, that would improve his efficiency a lot.
Yeah.
And then also with Dame, even though he attracts so much defensive attention, he doesn't shoot a lot of mid-range shots. So you could say maybe Dame needs to shoot that more, but like the defense always knows that CJ is going to shoot for the most part when he gets to the free throw line area, whereas Dame still has the threat of passing. And I've always thought if CJ passed more when he draws the defense into him, that it would open up for the defense not to be able to collapse on him as much, and he would get better shots within his ISO situations. But it's never really seemed to materialize into him becoming just like a facilitator first, scorer second.
Yeah.
But we've never really had a team where we could play like that either, which is why I'm kind of excited about this roster with both Dame and CJ, because these guys don't have to score like 60 points combined for us to win some of these games. We can actually play off some of our other players, and it might be fun to see them actually just becoming facilitators and not needing to burden so much scoring.
And here's the thing. CJ improved passing the ball last year, right? And not just like him putting up like great assist numbers, passing the ball well without Dame. With Dame, I think he improved passing the ball. I think that he actually became slightly underrated in that aspect. I mean, you literally have people out here that constantly say, CJ never passes, dude. That dude never throws a pass, blah, blah, blah. The dude, I don't know how you average 4.4 assists per game and never throw a pass. I don't know how that's possible. Maybe I'm missing something, but he tied his career high, 4.4 assists per game. Now, he has the ball in his hands a lot, and he does shoot a lot. It has a very high usage rate. But if you're talking about like a score-first shooting guard that averages over 4 assists per game, like normally that's like, okay, that's solid. You take that, right? Like you put a Bradley Beal in here, I don't think he's passing any more than CJ. Maybe he plays more within the flow of the offense, so it just looks like he passes more. It looks like he's more unselfish, but the thing is like our offense doesn't have much flow, right? And here's the thing I come back to with CJ. It's like his passing has become underrated. And I feel like some of his iso ball stuff, like, yes, he does isolate a ton, but some of it is due to the system we run, right? You just think about, we run this play all the time. We run CJ off a flare screen, and Dame will pass to CJ. Once CJ catches the ball, the play's basically dead, nobody's moving, and he's either A, supposed to shoot the 3 off the catch, B, supposed to attack one-on-one in isolation, or C, run a pick and roll. And if that pick and roll gets shut down, normally there's not enough time in the shot clock to do anything else, and he has to make something one-on-one. He has to make something happen one-on-one. That's like partly due to the play design, It's basically run CJ off a flare, get him the ball, maybe he's open for a 3. If not, he makes something off the dribble one-on-one, or off the pick and roll, right? And people see that and they scream about, oh, CJ going hero ball one-on-one. It's just like, okay, what else is he supposed to do? Like, that's kind of the play design. If he doesn't get the 3, that's kind of what he has to do in that situation. And the thing is like, I don't think our ball movement is that much better with CJ out of the game. Like, it is, I would say it's better, but not by much. But the way people talk about CJ, you would think our ball movement would be drastically night and day different when CJ's out of the game, but it's not. I feel like some of his, like, oh, he's selfish one-on-one hero ball, like he just isolates like crazy. I feel like some of that is due to just kind of like how stagnant our offense becomes, and we need him to go and do that because we need him to bail out an offense that ends up bogging down and ending up stagnant with everybody standing around.
Yeah, so I was pretty disappointed in CJ for 4 straight years. After his breakout season, his assist percentage dropped every year. And it was like, come on, CJ, become less ISO-oriented, not more ISO-oriented, right? And last year, he bounced back and it was up closer to the level it needed to be. I still don't think it's where it should be, but he did do a lot better passing last year. And I don't think people who hate on him recognize that he did fix that a little bit. So I hope that continues to grow in that direction. But the other thing is, you touched on it, is the focus of our offense. Because, I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but I think Melo is a good passer. He's just always asked to score and do, like, especially on New York and stuff. Like, he didn't really have a lot to pass to. So, like, he had to do that. And that's his mindset, right? So, but like, if you watch plays that are designed to get Melo the ball and have a cutter, and like Melo knows where he's supposed to go with the ball, he puts the ball right on the money in stride for a lay-in dunk. It's a lot of he's a good passer, and I think CJ is that same way. But like you said, they just don't play that way in offense. It's like, hey, or get us a bucket. We don't really have an offensive structure. You're not really looking for this person to be cutting in this situation. You're not really looking for this guy to come off a curl screen or a back screen or anything like that. So these guys don't have options to pass, and this is what's asked for them. And it's a complete mindset change. And we talked about this in that, I forgot, this was a while ago, but there was a stream where we talked about Dame's comments about how Coach Mike Brown told him that if he wanted to take the next level after losing to the Golden State in the playoffs, that he needed to learn how to play like Steph does off the ball. And but that's the problem, is like Dame was like, oh, we can't do that on my team. It's like, well, why not?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
You could run an offense if CJ is that good of a passer, and if you have guys who are willing passers, and that's what they know they're supposed to do in certain situations, then they won't just like refuse to run the offense and take a bad shot because they're gonna run the offense and do what pass to where they're supposed to. But that's not what they're supposed to do. Their offense is predicated on those guys getting buckets, and
which is fine during the regular season because people will say, "Oh, what was our offense ranked last year in the regular season?" Oh, it was ranked very highly. It's fine in the regular season. It's hard. It kind of screws us in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Whereas if we move the ball more, we would have a more productive offense in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It's that simple.
And this goes to the whole thing. I'm seeing so much hate on Dame lately on Twitter about how he can't play in the playoffs and he sucks in the playoffs and all that stuff. Well, it's exactly because of this. When you run that kind of offense where it's not predicated on ball movement and the offense is stagnant and you just rely on people to score like that, you can take a guy like Damian Lillard completely out of the game and there's nothing he can do about it, short of making like an insane amount of crazy tough shots against double teams and stuff like that. So that's the problem. Yeah.
Just think about how much worse it would be if he didn't have another player next to him that could create an isolation when the offense completely bogs down and needs an isolation score, right? People talk about start Trent, bring CJ off the bench. Like, that's not a good idea. CJ's a better player. He helps our team a little bit more at this point. Like, I get that Trent's a better fit on defense, but if we have an average defender in Damian Lillard, a good starting small forward defender if we start Derrick Jones Jr., or a solid defender if we start Rodney Hood at the 3, a really good defender at the 4, and Nurkic, potentially like a really good, I don't know, it's like some people say he's good, some people say he's a really good defender at the 5, but you have at least 2 solid defenders and 2 really good defenders in the starting lineup with CJ's poor defense. That should be around a borderline top 10 defensive team regardless, right? It's not like CJ's defense screws us up. And here's the thing. CJ's poor defense at the shooting guard isn't as it doesn't hurt us if we have, like, okay, how do I word this? CJ's poor defense at the shooting guard position doesn't hurt us as much if we have good backline defense, if we have good help side defense. Rocco is a great help side defender, great team defender. Nurkic is the same way, right? So CJ can press up and kind of take away the perimeter and not be worried about, oh, if I get burnt, what happens if I get burnt? They're going to score it. No, he can have confidence pressuring guys on the perimeter, can do a decent job pressuring guys on the perimeter, and then if he gets beat, you have solid backline defense with Rocco, with Nurkic, with potentially Derek Jones Jr. You can like offset some of CJ's mistakes by having players there to back him up. So that's the thing. Like, yeah, Trent's a better defender, but like offensively, here's the thing that's never considered. Bro, with how stagnant our offense is, if you had Gary Trent Jr. in there, like, you don't want Gary Trent Jr. like trying to isolate people and trying to score. Like, he's not good at that yet, right? Like, he's
That's
not.
We're hoping our offense will change.
Yeah, we're hoping our offense has changed, but like, it would have to be Dame bailing out our offense every single time when it bogs down. That would not. That's putting too much pressure on Dame to bail out our offense consistently. You need another off the dribble threat next to Dame, in my opinion. With a Rocco, like, I guess some people would say Rodney Hood is that guy, but Rodney Hood, like, is as much of a spot up guy to me as he is like an off the dribble guy. Like, he's like a third like off the dribble player. Maybe do a little bit here and there, but he's not like who you want as the main secondary guy doing stuff off the dribble. You need a decent secondary guy next to Dame that can do stuff off the dribble, in my opinion. And CJ's that guy. Right? We don't have like a Golden State type offense where we don't need, like, Golden State doesn't need a second guy, and Klay Thompson is kind of that second guy, but they have so much ball movement, so much player movement, they don't really need that. We're never going to have that type of player movement under Stotts, so we need that second guy offensively in the lineup to take the pressure off Dame, to do stuff off the dribble, to bail our offense when our offense bogs down, becomes stagnant, and CJ's that guy. So that's the thing, is like, some people think that it wouldn't hurt our offense to start Trent over CJ, and I just think that's wildly inaccurate, and it would hurt our offense more than it would help our defense.
And to be fair, most, like, even good defenses don't have like every single player are like elite defenders. It's that they work well as a team defensively, and like you said, are in the right positions to help and rotate. And that's way more important than having 5 awesome individual perimeter defenders or whatever. And that's been our problem all along, is our scheme is crap. So even if we do have elite defenders and CJ and Dame improve their defense a lot, it doesn't matter because people are falling asleep on the backside. The rotations aren't fast enough. No one knows where they're supposed to be. After 2 passes, it completely falls apart. And all that stuff can be improved by having personnel who understands defense without having to be told or taught that. And that'll make it quicker for those rotations and all that stuff. But it still matters that our team is cohesive as a unit on that end, and that our schemes are better defensively and the rotations are better, and that'll make up for having any lack of defense on the perimeter. But unfortunately, we haven't seen that. That's why it needs to be better this year. If we're not a top 10 defense, or like somewhere around 10th, I think it's a huge failure by the coaching staff.
Yeah, I'd say 10th to 12th like is kind of realistic. I think 8th to 12th is kind of in the range I'm expecting. Anything below 12th, I would say, is like, that's a failure by our coaching staff. 10th to 12th, if we're healthy, is like kind of the bottom end of where we should be. I'm hoping top 10, because we could have a top 5 offense and a top 10 defense. That's an elite team. Very rarely are teams top 5 in one thing and top 10 in the other. Right. I think there's maybe 3 teams last year that were top 5 in something and top 10 in the other, maybe 4, something around there. So that should be the goal. Top 5 offense, top 10 defense. So we can have a top 10 defense with CJ McCollum starting. The only way we're going to have a top 5 offense is if CJ McCollum is starting and playing 33 minutes a game or in that range. That's the only way we're going to have a top 5 offense. If we start Gary Trent Jr. and bring CJ off the bench as a 6th man, it doesn't make sense to play CJ 33, 34 minutes off the bench just because what, you're going to sit him for the first 6 minutes of the half and then almost play him for the rest of the half? Or what, you're going to sub him in 3 minutes into the half? Why not start him then if you're going to sub him in that early? So it makes no sense to bring CJ off the bench and give him 33 minutes a game. If we give him under 30 or whatever and bring him off the bench, we're not going to be a top 5 offense, in my opinion. We're just not, because he's literally our, I mean, maybe you'd say Nurkic is up there, but CJ McCollum, I'd say, is our second best offensive player. The reason we have been able to be a top 5 offense like last season with, we did have Melo, and he, had good games, had bad games, and Whiteside was an efficient center and whatnot. But the reason we were able to have a top 5 offense last year while playing guys like Tolliver, Hazonia, and whatnot is because we had the pairing of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. If we don't play CJ McCollum as a starter for 33 minutes a game, we're not going to have a top 5. We're not going to have a top 5 offense. The goal should be a top 5 offense, top 10 defense. The only way that happens is if we start CJ and play him 33 minutes a game.
And yeah, people are like, well, he'd be much better scoring off the bench. Well, he does play the bench, so like it doesn't matter. Like that's what I don't get about people that say, oh, he should be our 6th man. He basically is our 6th man just as a starter too. But like none of that stuff matters. It just matters how we finish games, and it's just frustrating that. Because I still see we need to trade CJ, we need to get rid of him, all that crap. We saw the Blazers Edge stuff about how, there's no good trades for CJ, but he's got to be traded anyway. And like that stuff is still going on a daily basis with Blazer fans. And it's just frustrating that people can't give like a legit scenario for that if that's what they really want. But yeah.
Yeah, so CJ is underrated by this fan base at this point because there's so much slander and hate and talk about how he's so overpaid. It's like, bro, I feel like if you brought Bradley Beal into this offense, he'd put up similar numbers, similar efficiency. Bradley Beal has regressed defensively. He was not a good defender last year, right? Maybe that's because he was carrying such a high burden. But like, yeah, he's a little better defensively than CJ. But I feel like Bradley Beal gets overrated because he started off as a pretty decent defender, and I feel like he's regressed the past few seasons. And I've heard Wizards fans say the same thing. So you bring him in here, he's probably putting up similar numbers. With the way our offense bogs down, he's probably isolating a bunch as well. Like, he'd probably be pretty similar to CJ if you brought Bradley Beal into this offense, in my opinion. And then you'd have people say, Bradley Beal's overpaid. Why is he still making so much money? Like, I don't think CJ might be slightly overpaid, but if you're going to get a guy who's going to give you 21, 22 points per game, 4 assists per game, and score like CJ, like, usually those guys make a max contract. Buddy Hield makes $22 million, right? Bogdan Bogdanovic is making about $20 million. Gordon Hayward is making $30 million. I don't think CJ's drastically overpaid at all, right? You put him on a bad team, he's giving you 27 points per game, 6 assists or something like that. Pretty close to what Bradley Beal does, right? And if CJ was on a bad team as a number 1 option, nobody would be saying he's overpaid because nobody's saying Bradley Beal's overpaid. And I feel like Bradley Beal would be a pretty similar player in here in Portland. So I don't know. Like, yeah, CJ's slightly overpaid, but normally you have to give players that are as good as CJ or better max contracts.
And let's give CJ some credit, too, for being loyal. I mean, yeah, we overpaid maybe a little bit, but he's never said anything to the contrary of wanting to join a better team or wanting to do that. I like guys that want to win where they're at, where the teams that drafted them, and yeah, it's easy to root for guys like that. So I like trading him out for a guy who, like Beal, who maybe doesn't even want to be here too. That's another factor that people don't pay attention to either.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing: like, if CJ McCollum was making $20 million a year instead of $30 million this offseason, would it have really changed our offseason at all? I don't think it would have. Because we stayed under the tax, used our trade player exception, used our full mid-level exception. Like, okay, so what? If we would have had $10 million more under the tax, we still would have been over the salary cap. So it wouldn't have really changed anything this offseason, heading into this offseason, if CJ was only making $20 million instead of $30 million. Like, that difference, like, yes, it matters, and it'll probably matter at some point, but it's not that relevant. It's not as relevant as people make it out to be, I feel like, because it didn't really stop us from doing anything this offseason. Maybe we could have, like, kept Hazonia and, stayed under attacks and gotten the 30th pick back with Kanter in that trade and then drafted like a T.O. Maladon. But like, bro, the difference between paying CJ $20 million and $30 million is a 30th pick. Like, it's just not that big of a difference to me as people make it out to be.
Just want to read Peter Holland's comment. What's up, man? He says CJ and Dame are going to wreak havoc with our wing players we have now. If Nurk can even take one step forward, we are top 4. Completely agree with that.
And here's the thing. I want to see what like this backcourt pairing does with like this type of roster, because we haven't seen this backcourt pairing with like this type of the type of players we have around them. So that's the thing. Is like, that's why it's like, bro, I'm not going to give up on CJ because it hasn't worked yet, which I disagree with, right? People talk about how our backcourt defensively can't work. We made a Western Conference Finals, though, with a one-armed Enes Kanter as our starting center with this backcourt defensively, right? And then we were like, we got swept, but we were like kind of competitive, and we were playing Myers Leonard as the starting big like the last game in that Western Conference Finals. You know what I mean? Like, it's so over-exaggerated to me how like poor defensively our backcourt is. It's like, how did we make a Western Conference Finals with Enes Kanter as our starting center, who's like probably like Enes Kanter isn't a worse defender than CJ, but he plays a position where defense is more at a premium. Defense matters more at center. So the fact that we had Enes Kanter, who had a dislocated shoulder, with our defensive backcourt, and we still had a good enough defense to beat the Denver Nuggets in a series and beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in 5, like, I think that goes to show that our poor defensive backcourt, that is over exaggerated. So that's the thing. I want to see this backcourt with a guy like Rocco. And, hopefully Nurkic has his best season on both ends of the floor next year. And maybe Derrick Jones Jr. can shoot better and space the floor and be fine offensively, be used more as a cutter. Maybe we have better ball movement. I want to see that too. But he would be if you had Derrick Jones Jr. at the 3, Rocco at the 4, Nurkic at the 5, with Dame and CJ as a backcourt, we should be a top 10 defense. So that's the thing. It's like, I've wanted for a while to see that backcourt paired with the defenders we have now and see how that works. Because I think it'll work out just fine.
Chat's still arguing about CJ. Yeah, that drives me crazy about this backcourt can never work. Well, they haven't had the right personnel around them. In the 2 years that they did have somewhat legit things, they've done well. And they've even won playoff series without like the right pieces around them too. They won a playoff series with Mason Plumlee as their starting center, and you could say that was because of injuries or whatever, but that series was 2-2 before those guys got hurt. So it wasn't like they were getting swept or something and then they got hurt and we won all 4 games or whatever. I believe Rocco is a much better version of Aminu, so I'm excited to see how those guys play. I wanted this team to get both better and smarter, and I feel like we did that. We have a lot of smart players on this team, a lot of guys who are comfortable in their roles. There's not going to be people who are doing too much. Like a guy like Rocco is one of the best role players in the league in the sense that he plays defense, he knocks down shots, but he's not going to take the ball away and be a high usage guy and get the ball out of the hands of your playmakers and stuff like that. So I think those are the perfect type of guys to pair Dame and CJ with. It should work out on the court.
I also think Terry Stotts might have his best coaching season since Aldridge left.
I hope so.
I mean, if you guys are new to us, like, media kind of knows us as the people who don't like Stotts, right? Because we are kind of critical of some of the things he does. I think it's legitimate criticism. And honestly, like, Neil Olshey in his press conference said that we needed to do different things on defense in terms of our schemes. And that's what we were saying all year long. Like, Neil Olshey in his press conference kind of agreed with us in terms of, like, we need, to change some things up and fix some things schematically on the defensive end. That quote from Olshey makes me think he's really putting pressure on Stotts to be more creative defensively, to be more aggressive defensively. You bring in a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., he has to be used as a cutter. He's not really a spot-up shooter, used off the ball, paired with Nurkic's passing. Maybe they try and get Nurkic and Derrick Jones Jr. some minutes together. Derrick Jones Jr. would be like a better Layman if he was, used off the ball as a cutter, quite like Layman was. And Layman was very productive in that end, and he was really the only player that like consistently moved off the ball the past few years. So I'm hopeful that combined with the better defensive personnel, probably the best defensive personnel Dame and CJ have ever played with, and then the potential that this might be the best coach season from Stotts, which, me and Eric would probably agree that isn't really a high bar because we haven't really been a fan of a lot of the coaching decisions he's made. But that's the optimistic part, paired with this personnel and potentially the best coach season. This could be a really, really good year for us. All right. So I want to see what this backcourt looks like with a better coach team. Hopefully that starts next year, and this personnel. And that's why I haven't given up on it. That's why I haven't been screaming, trade CJ no matter what we get back. I don't care what we get back. We just have to trade him. Which, like Blazers Edge, Dan Meringue put out an article like that basically saying we have to trade CJ. It doesn't even matter if there's a good trade out there. We have to trade him. That's why I haven't been saying that type of stuff, because I want to see what this backcourt looks like with good personnel and a well-coached team.
Yeah, it's funny. On my mailbag, I had a comment like, "Quit making excuses for Stotts. He doesn't deserve apologies."
I saw that comment.
I was like, "Dude, have you watched this channel before?" Like, obviously not welcome, but yeah. It's like, we're a little harsh on Stotts, but the funny thing is, if we see him change up and do things that we've expected him to do in previous years, it's going to be frustrating that we didn't do it sooner, or like with other rosters.
Yeah. It'll be like it'll literally be like, thank you for finally changing. See, we were right in the past. We needed to do this stuff more. Now we have better. Here's what the narrative would be. Oh, well, now we have the personnel to do it. No, we could have done it in the past. We just used the personnel as an excuse not to do it. Now we have the personnel where there's like even less excuse not to do it. Like, so maybe now we'll finally do it, and people will say it's due to the personnel, but like, we should have done it before. It's Peter Hall.
We're coming back. I think we're back.
I hope so. Are we back? Because this is so first lag spike we've had since I've been hardwired. So I can't even fix something about it. It's good old Comcast, Kyle. Are we back?
I don't know. Maybe, I think I went away again.
Probably wrap up the stream. So.
He has an Ethernet cable.
This stream might end. If it ends, honestly, I won't even try and restart it. Oh, we're back. So, no. It's like coming back for a second, and then it's... and then it's like, crap now.
I think I just...
I don't know what's happening, man. You're still fine.
I think we might.
Yeah, it keeps coming back, and it's like teasing us, man. We keep coming back. I don't know if people can hear me. Yeah, it keeps teasing us. It keeps like coming back for a second on our end, and then lagging out. Alvaro, I do have an Ethernet cable. Is it Ethernet? I always forget, and you always make fun of me.
Yeah.
Ethernet. I do have an Ethernet cable connected. It's hardwired right now, so we haven't been lagging we haven't had lag in like 2 weeks. Like any sort of lag, really. Yeah, so like the lags have been gone. So I don't know if this is lag. It's definitely Xfinity's end, because on Wi-Fi we had more lag because it's Wi-Fi. I'm connected now. I'm hardwired. I got a 50-foot Ethernet cable. It's actually way too long, but yeah, I mean, if you literally want proof, yeah, I'm hardwired. I should have gotten a 25-footer, not a 50-footer, but because the router's in the other room. The router's like not even in here. It's like way in the other room. So But yeah, I mean, I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Coaching.
Oh yeah, I mean, we will praise him. We will praise Stotts if he changes things up. If Stotts coaches how we've always wanted to coach, why would we criticize him? You know what I mean? That's what people make it out to be. Like, we just want to criticize the coaching, or like we don't like Stotts as a person or something. Like, no, I like Stotts as a person. Stotts completely fine, you know? And if he does things that I want him to do, obviously I'd praise him. I'd say Stotts is coaching a great, Stotts' coaching is great right now because, like, I agree with the things he's doing. And honestly, I think if he does, change up his defensive schemes more, play a little bit more aggressive defense, we run in transition more, and we have more ball movement offensively, just those 4 things. If we do all that, he'll probably get an A grade from me, because that's what I've been waiting for. And if we do those things, I think we'll be a really good team, especially with this personnel. So that's what I'm hoping for. If we don't do those things, then obviously I'll be questioning, why aren't we moving the ball more? Why aren't we running in transition? Why are we using Derrick Jones Jr. as a spot-up shooter in the corner if we use him like that? Obviously, I'll question that type of stuff. The thing is, I think part of you guys' problem could be that it's 50 feet. Yeah, that could be a problem with it, but it's been working just fine. I think, honestly, the media would criticize him if we don't do some of the things I mentioned. I think the media would be there with us.
The personnel excuse is gone this year. So
exactly. And I've heard people...
If you believe that when you have one of the worst defenses in the league and you do not make a single change or adjustment to that defense, and that's fine because you don't have the personnel, Tori and I don't believe that that's the case. We believe that when you are that bad at defense, you should try different things to see if something can work, or you can try to find a hidden skill in someone, or run a different scheme to see if you can do something.
And even if that doesn't happen, like, hopefully you can throw off the offense. Your defense still might not be that good, but if you change things up enough, maybe you might throw them off their rhythm and they might not shoot as well or something like that.
Yep. Okay, even if you ignore all that, like the constructive criticisms and the actual critiquing of his decisions and stuff, those aren't there this year. You can't say, oh, he doesn't have the defensive unit, because he can put in a Gary Trent with Dame and a Derrick Jones Jr. and a Robert Covington and a Nurkic, and that's like 5 really good defenders. Dame has really improved a lot on that end, and if he was not playing, in a lineup with CJ, he might be even better. But like, so you can't use the excuse that he doesn't have the personnel to play good defense. So if the defense struggles this year, those people better not say like, oh, well, there's nothing Terry can do, because those excuses are gone, because he has all these different players. He has a super deep team that he can do just about anything with. He can play just about any style. You got fast break, up tempo guys. You got guys that can play in the half court like Melo and Cantor. You got guys who can do both. You have defenders. You have offensive players. You have size. You have length, athletic ability. Like, you have everything. You have like one of the best top 10 players in the league. Like, there's no excuses for this team not to be good. And I better not be hearing, oh, like, well, what is Stotts going to do? There's nothing. Steph Curry's just a good player. It doesn't matter if you drop the big on him or if you blitz him on a screen. He'll beat you either way. Like, I don't want to hear that crap this year.
Yeah.
Like, there's no excuses.
I mean, you're not going to fully stop a Steph Curry, but you can slow him down more than we have in the past, Like, here's the thing. I'm going into the season with just a completely open, fresh mind on Stotts, right? Clean slate, all right? Nothing in the past will really matter in terms of this year, right? What he did a couple years ago or what he didn't do a couple years ago won't be relevant to this season, right? This season is what matters now. If he does a good job, I'll praise him. I'll come in with an open mind. If he doesn't fix things up, then I'll probably say, okay, he's never, ever going to change things up because now he has the personnel to do so when he didn't do so. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the thing is I get where people are coming from with he's limited by his personnel. I don't think he's anywhere near as limited as they say, but I get the mindset with that. Now those people who have always criticized Olshey and have always backed up Stotts, now they're praising Olshey and saying, well, now the pressure's on Stotts and he has to change things up. Now he has the personnel to change things up, and if he doesn't do so, then you might see some people who have never criticized Stotts once in their life criticizing the coaching. I'm just curious to see how it plays out. It's kind of exciting. Like, Stotts has no excuse and maybe he changed for the better. I'm hopeful. That's the thing. Is like, I'm as optimistic as I can be. Clean slate. Let's see what he does.
Well, here's the other thing too. Olshey talks about this. We have to get off to a good start record-wise. Like the years where we do well, we aren't fighting the last half of the season just for like to even make the playoffs or for a seed or whatever. Like we have to get going right away this year. We cannot be like under 500 after 20 games or whatever. And that's the other thing I hate. It was like, oh, well, there were so many new pieces, like, it takes time to gel or whatever. It's like half the league changed teams last year. Like, that's not an excuse for any team. And we're losing to teams who had, like, whole different rosters. Like, Golden State had their whole starting five injured and, and all their players that were playing were new guys, yet people are saying, like, well, it's going to take a while for, Whiteside and Hood and to be used to starting together.
And they're playing a lineup of, like, Kai Bowman and Marquise Chris and Eric Paschal and all sorts of just randomly thrown together guys. It's like, so that's the thing. We had some bad losses where it got excused away with excuses that didn't really fly for me, because either the other team was dealing with the same exact stuff and overcame it, or the other team was just so far inferiorly talented, like they had far less talent than us. We literally lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers. We had Dame and CJ. They were playing without Kevin Love, and I think without Tristan Thompson. They might have been playing with Tristan Thompson. But you're talking about, bro, the Cleveland Cavaliers are horrible with Kevin Love. Without Kevin Love, they are literally the worst team in the league, and we lost to them. Granted, we didn't have Whiteside, but we had Dame and CJ. That's far better than anybody else they had in their lineup. And I forget if we had Hood for that game or if we had lost Hood at that point. I think we might have had Hood. But, like, honestly, like, Melo, if he has a good game, I forget how well he played, but a good version of Melo would be just as good as anybody on that Cavs team. That's the thing. Like, we had losses like that I just felt were just inexcusable. And people kind of excused them away with, like, oh, well, we're injured and blah, blah, blah. Like, what can we do?
And then if you say, like, well, how is that an excuse for us but not them? Then they're like, oh, so you don't think injuries are an excuse? Like, that's a horrible analysis or whatever. And that's what we had to deal with all year.
Yeah,
so.
Where it was just like we made a bunch of mistakes in that game that were mistakes we shouldn't have been making, and we're trying to point that out. But I'm hoping that it'll just be all positivity because we win 72 games this year, We almost set the wins record in a 72-game season. How about that? But, we had some very depressing post-game streams last year after losses like that. It kind of sucked. Like, the first year we've ever, really done this channel, the first season, our first year post-game shows, all that, there was a lot of rough ones. After players got hurt, after really bad losses, games we shouldn't have lost, like games where, like, I mean, you look at the Brooklyn Nets game, Dame drops 60 and we lose. Like, it's like, okay, like, are we excited about Dame dropping 60 even though we lost the game? Like, didn't even know how to feel and how to even, like, go into that post-game show, because it was like, he dropped 60 and we lost to the Nets.
The last game of the bubble where LeVert shot rimming out away from losing despite Dame having
and missing the playoff. Yeah, he had like 50. I forget. Somebody maybe knows off the top of their head. But, like, yeah, Dame had a phenomenal game. They were injured. They didn't have Kyrie. I think they were sitting somebody important as well. And we had Nurkic, Dame, CJ, and we barely won that game. And it's like, yay, we made, the play-in game as the 8th seed, but we were like one shot away from completely missing the playoffs, our season being over to like a far inferior team. Yeah, there was a lot of post-game streams last year where it's just like, I don't want to make it sound like it wasn't fun, because it's phenomenal. Yeah. It's a ton of fun to do post-game shows, and it's good for us to be able to come on here, if we have a bad loss, and just kind of vent our frustrations, and you guys kind of vent with us, and then we move on, and hope for better in the future. That was basically last season. All last season, though, is just a lot of frustration, and we had some good games here and there. We blew out OKC at home, and I think that was maybe Melo's first home game in a Blazer uniform, and Melo played great, and then we absolutely dominated him. So there's some good post-game streams as well. I'm just hoping that this season is completely different. I have hope that this season, it'll be a completely different, like, vibe, like, consistently throughout the season. I'm hoping that it will just be, oh, well, we just lost to a good team, but we had won 5 in a row before that. We're still in second place. We're still in third place. We're fine, and we can be positive and like smile in a post-game show after a loss instead of just like constant frustration.
Yeah. See, I'm hoping we don't have streams this year where we're like, what was Stotts doing this game? Like, that'd be great. And we're going to get people saying like, oh, told you so, Stotts is a great coach, blah, blah, blah. And we're prepared to deal with that. But
hey, I would be fine if people were saying that because he's doing a good job coaching this year. Yeah. You know, I don't agree. He wasn't doing. I don't think he did a good job last year, but I'll give him that. If he does a good job this year, they can have that. I'll just be happy he's doing a good job.
Yeah, and like we're not too proud. Like we're known around like Blazers media as being the guys who are Stotts haters. Whatever, that's fine. But like we're not going to just continue hating him for no reason. If he's doing a good job, we'll give him credit. And I hope it's because we're having an awesome season and he's changed his ways. And I'm all for that. I'm not hoping that he does so bad he gets fired, because that means that we wasted this season, and I don't want that to happen. So I hope he does change.
Yeah. So I'm hoping. You know, I'm so excited for the season. I think everybody else is excited. I feel like people are a lot more excited for this season than they were last season. You know, we were coming off the Western Conference Finals, and people thought we had a decent offseason. They retroactively, after the season, was like, oh, last offseason was horrible, which at the time they weren't saying that. Like, so there was some hype around last season. It's just like we started off so bad so quick and dealt with Zach Collins going down right away. And, like, you know, I feel like people realized pretty early on in the season that, like, okay, Tolliver sucks, Hazonia sucks. What are we going to do? You know what I mean? So it was just like a pessimistic mood set in within the first like 10 games of the season, right? 82 game season, long season, but like a pessimistic mood, like, oh crap, we might not be that good this year, set in pretty early on last season. And it kind of just like killed any hype we had. I don't think that will happen this year. We have to, you know, maybe we have a really hard schedule at the start, but honestly, like if we go 5-5 against a bunch of playoff teams at the start, that just means we'll make our run later on against bad teams. You know what I mean? Like that would be an okay start. You know, 6-4 against playoff teams, and 9 of the games are against playoff teams. Like that's okay in my opinion. You know, that's a lot better than last season where we honestly weren't playing that many playoff teams early on. Actually, we had a pretty hard schedule, right? Didn't we early on last season? It's like a year ago now.
We're saying like after 16 or 17 games, if we could just be around 500, it was good.
Yeah. Granted, we were like 8 games below 500, though. You know what I mean? So I feel like people are a lot more excited. I mean, you can tell by like, maybe this is just us and our natural growth of our channel, but we literally have over 110 people watching this right now. Which, and this is our second channel. You know what I mean? We were lucky if we had 100 concurrent viewers for a post-game stream last year. We were lucky. Like, even in a win, it was so, like, the season was so rough that even in a win, it was hard for us. On our main channel with, like, we almost had, like, we were in between, like, 2,500 and 3,000 subscribers last year. We couldn't get this amount of viewers, even in a win. And this is our second channel before the season, and the support's been insane. Like, so I feel like everybody's just super hyped up right now, and it's awesome.
We had the first Melo game and the Utah goaltending game.
People tuned in for that, right? Yeah.
Was posting up.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like everybody's excited. Hopefully it you know. Hopefully it carries on through the season. Hopefully we have a good start, a good season, because I'm excited to see, like, it'll be a ton of fun to do post-game shows if we have a really good season. It'll be so, like, it was fun last season. It'll be so much fun if we have a really good season. So I'm super excited for this year. I hope you guys are as well. I'm pretty sure every Blazer fan is, you know, just curious to see what this team can do. And preseason only starts in 11 days. It's almost 10 days. In an hour, it'll only be 10 days. That's crazy. I actually love the quick turnaround. You know what I mean? Going straight from a good offseason straight into the season is, you know, the players probably don't really like that, but I love it. I love it because literally the excitement, it doesn't like boil down. It literally just carries on from the offseason straight into the season. It's just constant instead of like, oh, well, now we got Summer League. Okay, we'll do post-game streams for Summer League or whatever. And then what? Oh, a couple months where nothing happens. It's just constant. So very excited. We'll do our preseason post-game streams over here on this channel. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure to do so. We're just going to try and, you know, grow this channel a little bit more just by doing the preseason post-game streams over here. During the regular season, we will do we will basically have our post-game streams segmented into two. We will do the first hour or so of our post-game streams during the regular season on Blazers Uprise, and then if we want to stream for longer, we'll switch off and start streaming over here. The reason I'm doing that is, I've explained this before, but for those of you who don't know, Peter Hollins, our main, we have a main channel. I'll put it in the chat. And it's also should be in the description. I don't know if it's in the description. Oh no. Let me put it in the description as well. Basically, this is our streaming channel, and we do videos as well as post-game streams over on the other channel, and that's where we did like our draft stream and free agency stream. But basically, what I've discovered is doing too many streams on the main channel hurts how well the videos do, so that's why I created this second channel so that we could stream over here. Also, so during the regular season, for those of you who don't know, this is how we plan on doing things for regular season post-game streams. The first hour will be like heavy analysis, heavy breakdown, and that'll be on the main channel. And then if we just want to hang out and honestly like talk about whatever, then we'll switch off over here. We'll call it Blazers Uprise post-game show, the late night edition or something like that. And that way, and people have told me this before, people don't want to click on a stream that's like 2.5 hours long. You know, they're more likely to click on a stream that's an hour long, especially if they know there's a lot of people that want to watch streams back just for the analysis. They don't care about, you know, the banter, the hanging around, talking with chat, whatever. So the plan is to basically have hard-hitting analysis, full breakdown, post-game show for an hour over on Blazers Uprise, and then switch off over to the second streaming channel if we want to stream for like another hour beyond that. It'll make sense once you guys see it. If it's confusing, you guys will get the hang of it pretty early on. It's just so that the other reason why I'm doing that is because longer streams can hurt the channel more if there's also videos on the channel. It's just weird YouTube stuff. So basically, to help the main channel more, that's why I'm segmenting it like that. It'll basically help the main channel and help the videos be seen and not get screwed over by YouTube. It's just weird YouTube stuff. So our Discord, Eric put it in the chat if you guys are interested. Appreciate it, Reese. Reese beat you to the punch. I'm not sure if your link will cancel his out, but so if you guys want to join our Discord, the link's in there in the chat. Reese posted it, Eric posted it. Other than that, I'm super excited. Peter, man, I appreciate it, dude. Glad you found our channel. I'll have to check yours out because I haven't seen what you do. Yeah. But appreciate the love, man. And I will gladly hit you up for YouTube questions and whatnot. Other than that, I'm not sure there's really anything left to plug. The last thing I need to plug is I'm going to try and do an upload streak to December. Might not be able to keep up with it. I'm working a lot right now, but going to try and upload a video every day at the start of December. I have one done. I have one almost done for tomorrow, and then Thursday and Wednesday I'll put out a mailbag. So, expect the videos to be out pretty steady over the next week or two leading up to the preseason. And then we'll have basketball back, and I'm super excited for that. So, anything else left to plug? Anything you want to plug, Eric, with the outro? Nope. Eric's always just chilling on the outros, and I'm always searching for things that I need to say before I log off. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I will stream again on Thursday. If you guys are new, let me plug this as well. We stream going live around 9 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays over on this channel. So that's our streaming schedule now. That might change up when we get into the season, but Mondays, Thursdays, 9 p.m. Pacific time over here on Blazers Uprise Live. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'd greatly appreciate it. And with that, that's a wrap for this stream. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good rest of your night. And until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.